So Sanara Ventures is a joint venture of Philips and Teva Pharmaceutical. We're based in Israel. We invest seed stage and A round investment, like the first $1 million to $5 million investments in digital health and medical devices. At the moment, we have 17 companies within our portfolio. We're focusing on technologies which might be synergistic to Philips, might be synergistic to Teva, but even those who are not synergistic at all, but simply disruptive technologies, with a big focus on digital health, as well as medical devices, and just a bit of biotech. I think digital health is actually the expression that I like to use the most is cleaning the dust. I think the healthcare industry has been for decades and decades, maybe for hundreds of years, has been, with the fixedness, with stagnation, with conservatism, which we as people cannot stand anymore. I think digital health is cleaning the dust in the sense that it brings truly innovation that could be implemented, integrated, and accelerates the way we deliver care to people. This is on one side. On the other, and obviously can cut down the costs. On the other, as investors, as venture capitalists, corporate venture capitalists, I think that creates a huge opportunity because the way we deliver care, let it be within hospitals, let it be post-hospitalization, let it be on the terms of prevention and wellness before hospitalization, is going to dramatically change. In that sense, in my eyes, the train have left the stations, and it is more than one train. And the way this will materialize eventually, and luckily we started to see also big exits with some IPOs and acquisitions. So I think it creates, both on the financial returns as well as on the integration side, huge opportunities for the industry, for the ecosystem, not just the entrepreneurs and the startups, but also for VCs, corporate VCs, for governments to cut down the costs, finally, as part of the GDP, the healthcare expenditures. So I think the next 10 to 15 years will be quite exciting. Yeah, so I've been running Sanara ever since the inception of Sanara some 5 years ago. And when we talk to entrepreneurs that come to us, basically, in some cases, they are not exactly ready for an investment on behalf of Sanara. But we do talk to them, we do monitor and give them some of our feedbacks in terms of the use case, the specific use case of their technology, and what's the clinical application that they should be addressing too. So part of the investment process is not just to say go, no go for investment, but rather to help the entrepreneurs. And this is something that we try to do on a day-to-day within Sanara Ventures. On the side of the government, I'm also the chairman of the Life Science Board in the Israeli Export Institute. And on that behalf, as part of the Export Institute in Israel and the Ministry of Economy, we're trying to increase the export out of Israel. So the last year, the government in Israel has dedicated $300 million to promote digital health for the next 5 years as a revenue generator for the state of Israel. And in that sense, we have created some programs, global programs of participation and door opening capabilities in some major conferences on behalf of the Israeli government to allow the startup companies the accessibility to global players, to capital, to market opportunities, let it be in Asia or let it be in the US. For instance, we took part in this conference as co-sponsoring of this conference, the DigiHealth leaders here in London. We started to participate in the HIMSS in the US, which is the largest digital health conference in the United States. So I think both on the micro level, kind of with the startups' capacity and helping the companies, as well as on the government level, we're pretty much involved in promoting that because we see the opportunities and we are afraid not to be there. And as such, we're quite active. Yeah, I mean, digital health, what I like, and sometimes it's not yet clear, but anything that has to do with remote monitoring or telemedicine or the ability to allow people who have been suffering from the inability or the accessibility of medical care, let it be in growth countries, let it be in India, let it be in Brazil, let it be in Africa, or even in countries, in developed countries, that sometimes if you're away from the big cities, you cannot afford, you cannot go for 6 or 7 hours just to see a physician. I think that's the beauty. It crosses all areas and sectors. The potential is there to bridge those gaps, truly bridge those gaps, and allow accessibility of those technologies really at the very basic, the very fundamentals of what we do on this planet is to help people get better. So that could be on one side in terms of the infrastructure, such as telemedicine and remote monitoring, but also on the precision medicine, on the very small molecules, and the very small ability to specifically target and personalize treatment on the cancer treatment side, or on the let it be the hypertension, or let it be anything that in terms of the disease management, whoever has been suffering from diabetic cancer, whatever it may be, precision medicine comes in a much better way to address on a specific personalized level who we are, what we eat, what is our medical history. And in that sense, this is also a huge, huge potential to treat people differently. Sanara is part of, is pushing digital health as part of a transition that both Philips is doing, as both Teva are investors, in terms of Philips has done a major transition the last 4 or 5 years, becoming a more solution-oriented, data-oriented company, rather than a capital equipment company. And in that sense, we are trying to bring some innovations, some of those technologies that could be complementary or synergistic to Philips' offering. Teva, even though Teva is going through some tough changes the last 2 years, but Teva is also, as an innovative company, a generic company, but also as an innovative company, we're trying to come up with algorithms or AI technologies that might be complementary to Teva's offering. For instance, migraines. One of the companies that we have invested in is doing an early detection for migraines, while Teva is providing the drug. But the earlier you take your drug, the more efficiency you have on the attack, on the migraine attack. So these are complementary technologies that we're trying to invest in digital health, but we also invest in digital health regardless of their synergistic capacity to Teva and Philips. And we simply find disruptive technologies that could be related in one point of time to our investors, but also simply could be great companies. We have a company that is doing financial navigation for the out-of-pocket expenses of cancer patients in the United States. This is now really blooming and what is called, or addressing a market which is called financial toxicity, a company called TaylorMed. We just completed an $8 million round for this company, and the company has grown to 20-something people, selling now in the US. We have another company named iMedis, which is doing AI for CT scans, actually looking for incidental findings and missed findings, misdiagnosed within CT scans for early onset of cancer. There's another company called My Home Doc, which is a device based on the smartphone that is actually looking to allow primary care services for remote areas. So a mother with a child doesn't need to go to the ER if he has an ear infection. She can do it remotely and show the physician exactly what it looks like. And with that saves, obviously, time and resources and the need to go to the hospital on any given issue. So these are some of the examples that we have invested in. Successful Sanara would be on 2 verticals. One would be finding technologies that are applicable and synergistic to Philips and to Teva, that could be part of their product offering, but also the financial returns. We are looking for exits. As a venture capital fund, we are looking to liquidate our assets and have some exits. We have some good companies which we hope that within the next 2-3 years might go through that process. So both two will definitely define success for us. You know, investors, some of which are skeptics, some of the investors still standing aside. I mean, corporate VCs and the payers and the hospital, whoever might invest, not just VCs, looking to see the returns, looking to see the scale up and the scalability of those technologies, of those companies, really creating revenues and becoming profitable companies. So I think that basically if we are to see more, not just acquisitions that we have seen the last few years, ever since digital health started, but rather seeing more IPOs, initial public offerings of companies such as Livongo and others, that will increase the confidence for those investors that those companies are here to stay, those companies are worthwhile to invest in. And even though they may go through the ups and downs, this is part of the game. And we may shut down some of the companies. This is also part of the venture capital game. But nonetheless, the more IPOs and more successful IPOs that we shall see, that companies that do whatever, disease management or anything that addresses the specific needs of the market, this will increase the confidence of those various investors and stakeholders within the industry to support the companies with capital, with resources, with fine-tuning and channeling them to the global market, not just to the local markets. And I hope that the next 12 months we shall see more and more of those. Well, what keeps me awake is not necessarily related to digital health specifically. There will be ups and downs. There will be some quick wins maybe for some companies and IPOs, hopefully. What keeps me awake is a potential correction in the capital market themselves. This may put on hold as economies are, and this is a natural thing that might be happening. It's out there in the air for 2 or 3 years, a correction in the capital market. So that this might happen, may not, may happen in a few years. It's a cyclical nature. Nobody can predict that exactly when it's going to happen. But this will definitely impact on the venture capital industry and on the digital health investments as well as other important investment cycles and markets. So with that, we are moving and business as usual, but it might be up in the air. There's some discussions. The atmosphere is that it potentially may come. Who knows? Being modest, digital health leaders is actually, and this conference is actually a baby of mine. I was one of the co-funding team that came up with the idea and supported that, and having the LSX team come in with us, the Israeli government, and with the VCs such as Sanara Ventures, really to create an ecosystem, a community, a word which has been overused maybe, but has so much strength. A community is more than an ecosystem. An ecosystem is like a community. You talk, you share issues and problems, you create something, you co-invest, you help one another, and then it's going to be a win-win. This conference is a win-win for the industry. I'm like a butterfly. I'm just like flying and cherry picking some meetings that maybe my team is related to, and some others, just listening to the one-on-one, those conversations, the questions, the challenges, the lack of capital to the startup companies. I see that happening now behind us, and I think it's beautiful. I think we did create an ecosystem, a more kind of a community ecosystem that really talks the language and creates and helps digital health. What differentiates this conference from the others is the fact that we are focusing on the investment, on venture capital and corporate venture capital investment. There are huge, tremendous conferences in digital health, like in the US, in other places in Europe, in Asia, but not too many that are really focusing on the investment and the partnership component. And I think that is a unique value proposition that differentiates this conference from the others. What I'm looking for mostly in the event is a bit of a time off, to be kind of a butterfly that goes and not just sit down in meetings, but rather see from the macro level those meetings behind us, those startups meeting capital, those questions being asked, this momentum being created, and us actually creating a community that is specifically focusing on the investment, corporate venture capital and venture capital investment within digital health. There are tremendous, beautiful conferences elsewhere in Europe, in the US. Not too many of those are truly focusing on the investment side, and where the money is, show me the money. This is eventually what will define the game. And the name of the game is support and capital to those disruptive, amazing technologies. Without that, there's no game. So the more we see it happening, the more interactions, the more go, no-goes. Part of the game is also to say a no-go. But I think this is being created now, and the years to come hopefully will prove that. There are a few sectors that I'm personally excited about, not to say that we should necessarily invest in those, but I think that growth market, if we think as people, as people on this planet, and the inability of people, specifically in growth market, let it be in Asia, let it be in South America, let it be in Africa for sure, the inability of those people to get the proper medical care and the accessibility to healthcare as we take healthcare is a great promise to those. Digital health can bring truly a quantum leap to those companies, to those countries. This allowed the accessibility of medical care, proper medical care through telemedicine, through remote monitoring. I think that creates a huge opportunity, which we were lacking, when we're talking about the conservative medical markets and the need to scale services and the need to sell heavy capital equipment to faraway countries. With telemedicine, it seems to be easier. I hope we will be able to really build those and enjoy the financial returns as well. But this is one. The second, which I find them very interesting, is anything that has to do with precision medicine, anything that has to do with the personalized treatment of specific patient. We're not copy and paste kind of people, unfortunately. And this is now the time and the era to do things differently on that scale, on the therapeutic side, on the diagnostic side. And I'm a great believer in that sense that digital health will bring those benefits as well.